The complete whole personality of Godhead has immense potentials. How Kishan is acting in different potentials is also explained in Bhagavad Gita. This phenomenal world or material world in which we are placed is also complete in itself because the 24 elements of which this material universe is a temporary manifestation. According to Sankhya philosophy are completely adjusted to produce complete resources which are necessary for the maintenance and subsistence of this universe. There is nothing extraneous, nor is there anything needed. This manifestations has its own time fixed by the energy of the Supreme Whole, and when its time is complete, these temporary manifestation will be annihilated by the complete arrangement of the complete. There is complete facility for the small complete units, namely the living entities, to release the complete, and all sorts of incompleteness are experienced due to incomplete knowledge of the complete. So, Bhagavad Gita contains the complete knowledge of Vedic wisdom. All Vedic knowledge is infallible, and Hindus accept Vedic knowledge to be complete and infallible. For example, cow dung is the stool of animal, and according to Smriti or Vedic injunctions, if one touches the stool of an animal, he has to take a bath to purify himself. But in the Vedic scriptures, cow dung is considered to be a purifying agent. One might consider this is to be contradictory, but it is accepted because it is Vedic injunction. And indeed, by accepting this, one will not commit a mistake. Subsequently, it has been proved by modern science that cow dung contains all antiseptic properties. So, Vedic knowledge is complete because it is above all doubts and mistakes. And Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is not a question of research. Our research work is imperfect because we are researching things with imperfect senses. We have to accept perfect knowledge which comes down as is started in Bhagavad Gita by the Parampara, disciplic succession. We have to receive knowledge from the proper source in disciplic succession, beginning with the Supreme Spiritual Master, the Lord Himself, and handed down to a succession of spiritual masters. Arjun, the student who took lessons from Lord Shri Krishna, accepts everything that he says without contradicting him. One is not allowed to accept one portion of Bhagavad Gita and not another. No, we must accept one portion of Bhagavad Gita and not another No, we must accept Bhagavad Gita without without interpretations, without dilation, and without our own whimsical partic- participations in the matter. The Gita should be taken as the most perfect presentation of Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is received from transcendental sources, and the first words were spoken by the Lord Himself. The words spoken by the Lord are called that they are different from words spoken by a person of the mundane world who is infected with four defects. A mundaner. First is sure to commit mistakes. Second is invariably illusioned. Third has the tendency to cheat others. And last is fourth. Fourth is limited by imperfect senses. With these four imperfections, one cannot deliver perfect information of all pervading knowledge. Vedic knowledge is not imparted by such defective living entities. It was imparted unto the heat of Brahma, the first created living being, and Brahman in his turn disseminated this knowledge to his sons and disciples as his original received it from the Lord. The Lord is Purnam, all perfect, and there is no possibility of his becoming subjected to the laws of material nature. One should therefore be intelligent enough to know that the Lord is the only proprietor of everything in the universe, and that he is the original creator, the creator of Brahma. In the 11th chapter, the Lord is addressed as because Brahma is addressed as Pitamaha, the grandfather, and he is the creator of the grandfather. So, no one should claim to be the proprietor of anything. One should accept only things which are set aside for him by the Lord as his quota for his maintenance. There are many examples given of how we are to utilize those things which are set aside for us by the Lord. This is also explained in Bhagavad Gita. In the beginning, Arjun decided that he should not fight in the battle of Kurukshetra. This was his own decision. Arjun told the Lord that it was not possible for him to enjoy the kingdom after killing his own kinsman. This decision was based on the body because he was thinking that the body was himself and that his bodily relations or expansions were his brothers, nephews, brother-in-law, grandfathers, and so on. Therefore, he wanted to satisfy his bodily demands. Bhagavad Gita was spoken by the Lord just to change this view, and at the end Arjun decides to fight under the directions of the Lord when he says, I shall act according to your word. In this world, men are not meant for quarreling like cats and dogs. Man must be intelligent to realize the importance of human life and refuse to act like ordinary animals. A human being should realize the aim of his life, and this direction is given in all Vedic literatures, and the essence is given in Bhagavad Gita. Vedic literature is made for human beings, not for animals. Animals can kill other living animals, and there is no questions of sin on their part. But if a man kills an animal for the satisfactions of his uncontrolled taste, he must be responsible for breaking the laws of nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly explained that there are three kinds of activity according to the different modes of nature. The activity of goodness, of patience, and of ignorance. Similarly, there are three kinds of tables also: tables in goodness, patience, and ignorance. All of this is clearly described, and if we properly utilize the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, then one whole life will become purified, and ultimately we will be able to reach the destination which is beyond this material sky. That destination is called the Sanatan sky, the eternal spiritual sky. In this material world, we find that everything is temporary. It comes into being, stays for some time, produces some byproducts, dilutes less, and then vanishes. That is the law of the material world. Whether we use as an example this body or a piece of fruit or anything, but beyond this temporary world, there is another world of which we have information. That world consists of another nature, which is Sanatan. Eternal Jeev is also described as Sanatan, eternal, and the Lord is also described as Sanatan in the 11th chapter. We have an intimate relationship with the Lord, and because we are all qualitatively one, the Sanatan Dham or sky, the Sanatan Supreme Personality, and the Sanatan living entities. The whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to revive our Sanatan occupations or Sanatan Dharma, which is the eternal occupations of the living entity. We are temporarily engaged in different activities, but all of these activities can be purified when we give up all these temporary activities and take up the activities which are prescribed by the Supreme Lord. That is called our pure life. The Supreme Lord and His transcendental abode are both Sanatan, as are the living entities, and the combined association of the Supreme Lord and the living entities in the Sanatan abode is the perfection of human life. The Lord is very kind to the living entities because they are His sons. Lord Krishna declares in Bhagavad Gita, Serve, I am the Father of all. Of course, there are all types of living entities according to their various karmas. But here the Lord claims that He is the Father of all of them. Therefore, the Lord descends to reclaim all of these fallen, conditioned souls, to call them back to the Sanatan eternal sky, so that the Sanatan living entities may regain their eternal Sanatan positions in eternal associations with the Lord. The Lord comes Himself in different carnations, or He sends His confidential servants as sons or His associates or acharya to reclaim the conditioned souls. Therefore, Sanatan Dharma does not refer to any sectarian process of religion. It is the eternal function of the eternal living entities in relationship with the eternal Supreme Lord. Sanatan Dharma refers, as stated previously, to the eternal occupation of the living entity. Sripad Ramanujacharya has explained the word Sanatan as that which has neither beginning or end. So, when we speak of Sanatan Dharma, we must take it for granted on the authority of Sripad Ramanujacharya that it has neither beginning nor end. The English word religion is a little different from Sanatan Dharma. Religion conveys the ideas of faith, and faith may change. One may have faith in a particular process, and he may change this faith and adopt another. But Sanatan Dharma refers to that activity which cannot be changed. For instance, liquidity cannot be taken from water, nor can heat be taken from fire. Similarly, the eternal function of the eternal living entity cannot be taken from the living entity. Sanatan Dharma is eternally integral with the living entity. When we speak of Sanatan Dharma, therefore we must take it for granted on the authority of Sripad Ramanujacharya that it has neither beginning nor end. That which has neither end nor beginning must not be sectarian, for it cannot be limited by any boundaries. Those belonging to some sectarian faith will wrongly consider that Sanatan Dharma is also sectarian. But if we go deeply into the matter and consider it in the light of modern science, it is possible for us to see that Sanatan Dharma is the business of all the people of the world, nay, of all the living entities of the universe. Non-Sanatan religious faith may have some beginning in the animals of human history, but there is no beginning to the history of Sanatan Dharma because it remains eternally with the living entities insofar as the living entities are concerned. The authoritative stated that the living entity has neither birth nor death. In the Gita, it is stated that the living entity is never born and he never dies. He is eternal and indestructible, and he continues to live after the destruction of his temporary material body. In reference to the concept of Sanatan Dharma, we must try to understand the concept of religion from the Sanskrit root meaning of the word Dhram. Dhram refers to that which is constantly exciting with a particular object. We conclude that there is heat and light along with the fire. Without heat and light, there is no meaning to the word fire. Similarly, we must discover the essential part of the living being, that part which is his constant companion. That constant companion is his eternal quality, and that eternal quality is his eternal religion. When Sanatan Goswami asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about the Swarup of every living being, the Lord replied that the Swarup or constitutional position of the living being is the rendering of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we analyze this statement of Lord Chaitanya's, we can easily see that every living being is constantly engaged in rendering service to another living being. A living being serves other living beings in various capacities. By doing so, the living entity enjoys life. The lower animals serve human beings as servants, serve their master. A serves B masters, B serves C masters, and C serves D master, and so on. Under these circumstances, we can see that one friend serves another friend. The mother serves the son, the wife serves the husband serves the wife, and so on. If we go on searching in this spirit, it will be seen that there is no exceptions in the society of living beings to the activity of service. The politician presents his manifesto for the people to there is no exemptions in the society of living beings to the activity of service. The politician present his manifesto for the public to convince them of his capacity for service. The voters therefore give the politician their valuable votes, thinking that he will render valuable service to society. The shopkeeper serves the customer and the artisan serves the capitalist. The capitalist serves the family and the family serves the state in the terms of the eternal capacity of the eternal living being. In this way, we can see that no living being is exempt from rendering service to other living beings, and therefore we can safely conclude that service is the constant companion of the living being, and that the rendering of service is the eternal relation of the living being. Yet man professes to belong to a particular type of faith with reference to particular time and circumstances, and thus claims to be a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or an adherent of any other sect. Such designations are known. Sanatan Dharma. A Hindu may change his faith to become a Muslim, or a Muslim change his faith to become a Hindu, or a Christian may change his faith, and so on. But in all circumstances, the change of religious faith does not affect the eternal occupations of rendering service to others. The Hindu, Muslim, or Christian in all circumstances is servant of someone. Those to profess a particular type of faith is not to profess one's Sanatan Dharma. The rendering of service is Sanatan Dharma. Factually, we are related to the Supreme Lord in service. The Supreme Lord is the supreme enjoyer, and we living entities are his servitors. We are created for his enjoyment, and if we participate in that eternal enjoyment with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we become happy. We cannot become happy, otherwise it is not possible to be happy independently. Just as no one part of the body can be happy without cooperating with the stomach, it is not possible for the living entity to be happy without rendering transcendental loving service unto the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, worship of different demigods or rendering service to them is not approved. It is started in the 7th chapter 20th verse. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations, or worships according to their own natures. Here it is plainly said that those who are directed by lust worship the demigods and not the Supreme Lord Krishna. When we mention the name Krishna, we do not refer to any sectarian name. Krishna means the highest pleasure, and it is confirmed that the Supreme Lord is the reserve, reserve, server, reservoir, or storehouse of all pleasure. We are all hankering after pleasure. The living entities, like the Lord, are full of consciousness and they are after happiness. The Lord is perpetually happy, and if the living entities associates with the Lord, cooperate with him and take part in his association, then they then they also become happy. The Lord descends to this mortal world to show his pastimes in Vrindavan, which are full of happiness. When Lord Shri Krishna was in Vrindavan, his activities with his cowherd boyfriends, with his jam self friends, with the other inhabitants of Vrindavan, and with the cows were all full of happiness. The total population of Vrindavan knew nothing but Krishna. But Lord Krishna even discouraged his father Nand Maharaj from worshipping the demigod Indra, because he wanted to establish the fact that people need not worship any demigod. They need only worship the Supreme Lord, because their ultimate goal is to return to his abode. The abode of Lord Shri Krishna is described in the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, 6th verse. The supreme abode of mind is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. This verse gives a description of that eternal sky. Of course, we have a material conceptions of the sky, and we think of it in relationship to the sun, moon, stars, and so on. But in this verse, the Lord states that in the eternal sky there is no need for the sun, nor for the moon, nor electricity or fire of any kind, because the spiritual sky is already illuminated by the Brahmjyoti, the rays emanating from the Supreme Lord. We are trying with difficulty to reach other planets, but it is not difficult to understand the abode of the Supreme Lord. This abode is referred to as Golak in the Brahm Samhita. It is beautifully described. The Lord resides eternally in his abode Golak, yet he can be approached from this world, and to this end the Lord comes to manifest his real form. When he manifests this form, there is no need for our imagining what he looks like. To discourage such imaginative speculations, he descends and exhibits himself as he is, as Sam Sundaram. Unfortunately, the less intelligent deride him because he comes as one of us and plays with us as a human being. But because of this, we should not consider the Lord one of us. It is by his omnipotency that he presents himself in his real from before us and displays his pastimes which are re, re, repliques of those pastimes found in his abode. In the effulgent rays of the spiritual sky, there are innumerable planets floating. The Brahm Jyoti emanates from the supreme abode, Krishan Lok and the Anantmay, Sinmay planets, which are not material, float in those rays. The Lord says, one who can approach that spiritual sky is not required to descend again to the material sky. In the material sky, even if we approach the highest planet, what to speak of the moon, we will find the same conditions of life, namely birth, death, namely birth, death, disease, and old age. No planet in the material universe is free from these four principles of material existence. The living entities are traveling from one planet to another, but it is not that we can go to any planet we like merely by a mechanical arrangement. If we desire to go to other planets, there is a process of going there. For going there, this is also mentioned. No mechanical arrangement is necessary if we want interplanetary travel. The Gita instructs Yanti Dev Vrata Devan. The moon, the sun, and the higher planets are called Savra Golaka. There are three different statuses of planets: higher, middle, and lower planetary systems. The Earth belongs to the middle planetary the system. Bhagavad Gita informs us how to travel to the higher planetary systems. Devlok, with a very simple formula, Yanti Dev Vrata Devan. One need only worship the particular demigod of that particular planet, and in that way go to the moon, the sun, or any of the higher planetary systems. Yet Bhagavad Gita does not advise us to go to any of the planets in this material world, because even if we go to Brahmlok, the highest planet, through some sort of mechanical contrivance by maybe traveling for 40,000 years, and who would live that long, we will still find the material inconveniences of birth, death, disease, and old age. But one who wants to approach the supreme planet Christian log, or any of the other planets within the spiritual sky will not meet with this material inconveniences amongst all of the planets in the spiritual sky. There is one supreme planet called Golak Vrindavan, which is the original planet in the abode of the original personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. All of these information is given in Bhagavad Gita, and we are given through its instruction information how to leave the material world and begin a truly blissful life in the spiritual sky. In the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the real picture of the material world is given. It is said there. Here the material world is described as a tree whose roots are upwards and branches are below. We have experienced of a tree, those roots are upward. If one stands on the bank of a river or any reservoir of water, he can see that the trees reflected in the water are upside down. The branches go downward, and the roots upward. Similarly, this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. The material world is but a shadow of reality. In the shadow there is no reality or substantially, but from the shadow we can understand that there are substance and reality. In the desert there is no water, but the mirage suggests that there is such a thing as water. In the material world there is no water, there is no happiness, but the real water of actual happiness is there in the spiritual world. The Lord suggests that we attain the spiritual world in the following manner: that Padam, that eternal kingdom can be reached by one who is Nirman Moh. What does this mean? We are after designation. Someone wants to become Sir, someone wants to become a Lord, someone wants to become the president or a rich man or a king or something else. As long as we are attached to these designations, we are attached to the body because designations belong to the body, but we are not these bodies. And realizing this is the first stage in spiritual realization, we are associated with the three modes of material nature, but we must become detached through devotional service to the Lord. If we are not attached to devotional service to the Lord, then we cannot become detached from the modes of material nature. Designations and attachments are due to our lust and desire, are wanting to lord it over the material nature. As long as we do not give up this propensity of lording it over material nature, there is no possibility of returning to the kingdom of the Supreme, the Sanatan Dham, that eternal kingdom which is never destroyed, can be approached by one who is not bewildered be wildered by the attractions of false material enjoyments, who is situated in the service of the Supreme Lord. One so situated, one so situated can easily approach the supreme abode. Unmanifested, not even all of the material world is manifested before us. Our senses are so imperfect that we cannot even see all of the stars within this material universe. In Vedic literature we can receive much information about all the planets, and we can believe it or not believe it. All of the important planets are described in Vedic literatures, especially Srimad Bhagavatam, and the spiritual world, which is beyond this material sky, are described as unmanifested. One should desire and hanker after that supreme kingdom, for when one attains that kingdom, he does not have to return to this material world. Next, one may raise the questions of how one goes about approaching that abode of the Supreme Lord. Information of this is given in the 8th chapter. It is said there, anyone who quiets his body at the end of life, remembering me, attains immediately to my nature, and there is no doubt of this. One who thinks of Krishna at the time of his death goes to Krishna. One must remember the form of Krishna. If he quiets his body thinking of this form, he surely approaches the spiritual kingdom. Madbhavam refers to the supreme nature of the Supreme Being. The Supreme Being is that is, his form is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. Our present body is not full of knowledge, but it is full of ignorance. We have no knowledge of the spiritual kingdom, nor do we even have perfect knowledge of this material world, where there are so many things unknown to us. The bodies are so Nirandan. Instead of being full of bliss, it is full of misery. All of the miseries we experience in the material world arise from the body. But one who leaves this body thinking of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, at once attains a Saksit Anand body. The process of quieting this body and getting another body in the material world is also organized. A man dies after it has been decided what form of body he will have in the next life. Higher authorities, not the living entity itself, make these decisions. According to our activities in this life, we either rise or sink. This life is a preparations for the next life. If we can prepare, therefore, in this life to get promotion to the kingdom of God, then surely after quieting this material body, we will attain a spiritual body just like the Lord's. As explained Before, there are different kinds of transcendentalists, the Brahmavadi, Paramatmavadi, and the devotee. And as mentioned in the Brahmjyoti, spiritual sky, there are innumerable spiritual planets. The number of these planets is far greater than all of the planets of this material world. This material world has been approximated as only 1/4 of the creation. In this material segment, there are millions and billions of universes with trillions of planets and suns, stars, and moons. But this whole material creation is only a fragment of the total creation. Most of the creation is in the spiritual sky. One who desires to merge into the existence of the Supreme Brahman is at once transferred to the Brahmjyoti of the Supreme Lord and thus attains the spiritual sky. The devotee who wants to enjoy the associations of the Lord enters into the Vaikuntha planets, which are innumerable, and the Supreme Lord by his plenary expansions as Narayan, with 4 hands and with different names like Pradyuman, Anirudh, and Govind, associates with him there. Therefore, at the end of the life, the transcendentalists think either of the Brahmjyoti, the Paramatma, or Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Lanka, in all cases, they enter into the spiritual sky, but only the devotee or he who is in personal touch with the Supreme Lord enters into the Vaikuntha planets or the Golok Vrindavan planet. The Lord further adds that of this there is no doubt. This must be believed firmly. We should not reject that which does not tally with our imaginations. Our attitude should be that of Arjun. I believe everything that you have said. Therefore, when the Lord says that at the time of death, whoever thinks of him as Brahman or Paramatma, as the doubt, or as the personality of Godhead, certainly enters into the spiritual sky. There is no doubt about it. There is no question is disbelieving it. The Bhagavad Gita also explains the general principles that makes it possible to enter the spiritual kingdom simply by thinking of the Supreme at the time of death. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quiets his present body. In his next life, he will attain to that state without fail. Now, first we must understand that material nature is a display of one of the energies of the Supreme Lord in the Vishnu Putan. The total energies of the Supreme Lord are delineated. The Supreme Lord has diverse and innumerable energies which are beyond our conception. However, great learned sages or liberated souls liberated souls and have studied these energies and have analyzed them them into three parts. All of these energies are of Vishnu Shakti, that is to say, they are different potentials of Lord Vishnu. The first energy is Par, Para. Transcendental living entities also belong to superior energy, as has already been explained. The other energies or material energies are in the mode of ignorance. At the time of death, either we can remain in the inferior energy of this material world, or we can transfer to the energy of the spiritual world. So the Bhagavad Gita says, whatever state of being one remembers, when he quiets his present body, in his next life he will attain to that state without fail. In life we are accustomed accustomed to thinking either of the material or of the spiritual energy. Now, how can we transfer our thoughts from the material energy to the spiritual energy? There are so many literatures which fill our thoughts with the material energy. Newspapers, magazines, novels, etc. Our thinking, which is now observed in these literatures, must be transferred to the Vedic literatures. The great sages therefore have written so many Vedic literatures, such as the Purans. The Purans are not imaginative, they are historical records. In the Karimata, in the Chaitanya, there is the following verse. The forgetful living entities or conditioned souls have forgotten their relationship with the Supreme Lord, and they are engrossed in thinking of material activities just to transfer their thinking power to the spiritual sky. Krishan Dev Panna Vyas has given a great number of Vedic literatures. First, he divided the Veds into four, then he explained them in the Purans, and for less capable people, he wrote the Mahabharata. In the Mahabharata, there is given the Bhagavad Gita. Then all Vedic literature is summarized in the Vedanta Sutra. And for future guidance, he gave a natural commentation on the Vedanta Sutra called Srimad Bhagavatam. We must always engage our minds in reading these Vedic literature, just as materialists engage their minds in reading newspaper, magazine, and so many materialistic literatures. We must transfer our reading to these literatures which are given to us by Vyasadeva. In that way, it will be possible for us to remember to Supreme Lord at the time of death. That is the only way suggested by the Lord, and He guarantees the result. There is no doubt. Therefore, Arjun, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time continue your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. He does not advise Arjun simply to remember him and give up his occupation. No, the Lord never suggests anything impractical in this material world. In order to maintain the body, one has to work. Human society is divided according to work into four decisions of social order: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vyas, and Sudra.